Comic Book Savant, episode 330.
I know this. This I know. All that I have, all that is me, resides inside my poetry. And every time I write a rhyme, it might be the line that sets mine free. And also, I know that I don't...
Welcome to the Comic Book Savant podcast. I'm your host, James Harris. This week, we're going to do a season 1 review of Marvel's Netflix Iron Fist. But before we get into that, as always, I'd like to give a shout out to my friends over at the Comics Podcast Network. You can find them over at comicspodcast.com. It is the best place that you can go on the internet when you're looking for comic book related podcasting material. It's a great kind of makeshift directory built by the people that do the actual content. It's a organization, or it can a group of guys that just pulled together years ago as a place that we can all have our shows put together in one spot, and help cross promote one another as well, giving our individual fans a place to go if they like our content to find other like content. And that's basically what the Comics Podcast Network is in a nutshell. It started with maybe, 15, 20 creators. Now it's literally over hundreds. It's grown in magnitude over the years, and it's been a good thing. It's helped me gain new listeners, and I always like to promote it at the beginning of each episode in hopes that if you guys like what I do, you'll go there and discover even more content creators. There's so many different content creators in the space when it comes to comic book podcasts that if you like this, hopefully you can find other podcasts you can go and support. Again, I'm a single party podcast. You can go there. You can find roundtable discussion, multi-host podcast, and on and so forth on individual publishers, individual characters. I love it. I love it for that because it helps promote the diversity, just how it's so much diversity in comics nowadays and so many different comics. You need the podcasting space to reflect that as well, because everyone has different taste and different preferences. So it's good that you can go someplace and kind of have a one-stop shop to find other things that might fill your interest. I might scratch one itch for you, but you can find another podcaster out there that talks about comics that can hit another one for you. And that's the great thing about the medium of podcasting, is that you can have all that and enjoy it all. You don't have to pick one over the other. So that's a great thing. And last but not least, the sponsor for this episode and every episode, which is InStockTrades.com, I don't even know how to say it. It's the, grand shopping emporium. I think of In Stock Trades in a lot of ways as the Amazon for comics. If it was just Amazon for comics or collected editions, that is what InStockTrades.com is. Again, it's the destination to go online when you're looking for hardcovers, collected editions, omnibus, absolute editions, anything of the sort. This is a place to go. They have discounts starting from 35% off, 42% off, and up to 50% off on their deals of the week. Checking the site out now as I speak. Right now, some of their 50% off deals of the week. Right now we have Batgirl trade paperback volume 1, Beyond Burnside. It's the first trade of the Rebirth Batgirl series. That's 50% off, only going to cost you $8.49. We also have the Rebirth Cyborg Volume 1 trade paperback. Let's see. The Imitation of Life. That one is also 50% off, only $8.49 for that first trade. Then we also have from this is Image Comics, if I remember correctly, is East of West, and this is the Apocalypse Year 2 hardcover. That is 50% off, only $24.99. Then we have Justice League of America, the Bronze Age Omnibus hardcover volume 1, 50% off, only $49.99. And last but not least, we have X-Force Epic Collection Trade Paperback Under the Gun. That's 50% off, only $19.99. So it's really some great deals. Excuse me. With that being said, if you're a U.S. customer and you spend $50 or more, you get free shipping within the U.S. That's only available for U.S. customers. Now, if you're a customer that a listener that actually listens to the show, and you like in stock trades, you can still get all those great deals that I just listed. You just don't get the extra bonus when you hit the $50 purchase that you get the free shipping. That's only for U.S. customers, but they do have really, really competitive and cheap international shipping rates, so you can still save some over than what you might buy if you buy it locally with those savings. So don't be discouraged of not going out, checking out the site and checking out how much money you can save on some of these books. And just let them know if you have tried the service or you are going to try it based on this recommendation. Let them know you heard about them here first on Comic Book Savant. That always helps me out a great deal. And now let's get into the meat of the episode. This is This is the fourth series, Netflix series, to come to air at this point in this Marvel Netflix universe. You know, we've had Daredevil, which has been a huge runaway hit, and it's had 2 seasons so far. We have Jessica Jones, and we had Luke Cage. They've been very well received, all of them, some a little bit more than others, but I feel like all of the shows to this point have been pretty much quality. So we entered the fray with the fourth and final show that's going to lead us into Defenders, which is when all this was announced. This was the end game. We were going to have these 4 individual series leading up to a joint team series, which is going to be 8 episodes, and that's going to be coming out. They haven't really announced a date. If I remember correctly, they're either currently shooting or have just wrapped shooting with the Defenders. I think they're still currently shooting. They have so many different shows in some form of production. They keep these shows pretty much going back to back to back. You know, they announced the Punisher show was coming at some point. That's already filmed. I think they've already filmed part or most of Daredevil season 3 at the same time that the Defenders is going on. Then we have the Defenders, and I think at some point soon, if they haven't already, Jessica Jones season 2 is going to go in production. So they have a lot of balls moving over there at Marvel up in New York, shoot with these Netflix series. The breakdown for Iron Fist is this: a young man is bestowed with an incredible martial arts skills and a mystical force known as the Iron Fist. Now, the cast is as follows. We have Finn Jones as Danny Rand. We have Jessica Henwick as Colleen Wing. We have Jessica Stroup as Joy Meacham. We have Choi Pelfrey as Ward Meacham. We have Wei Ching Ho as Madame Gao, which we were introduced originally in Daredevil season 1. We have Barrett Doss as Megan. We have Megan is Megan. Harold Wenham as Harold Meacham, Clifton Davis as Gerald Barnes. We have Rosario Dawson reprising her role as Claire Temple. We have Sasha Dahan as Davos, and then we have Ramon Rodriguez as Boudico. And let me say this, if I did not say this earlier, and I hope I didn't, that was kind of like a spoiler, but if you haven't watched this yet, this is going to be full of spoilers. So if you have not watched Iron Fist yet, please at this point, pause the podcast, watch the series, then come back so I'm not spoiling any or revealing anything to you. But this is going to be a spoiler-filled review. So there's your warning. I forgot to do it a little bit earlier. I do apologize. And I might have gave a little spoilers with the Rosario Dawson thing, and I do apologize. Now, basically, I'll have to say just initially going in, because it's been a lot of stuff, before the show was even released last week, it was a lot of some people, reviewers, TV pundits that, do reviews on the net and on YouTube and so forth. Some had early access to the first handful of episodes or even the whole series. And, it was a lot of negative feedback before it was released to the general public about the level of the quality of the show. I have learned in my time doing comic reviews and reviewing all this comic book related content, be it movies, TVs, video games, whatever I've covered in my time doing the Comic Book Savant podcast, I've learned to take any expectations out and preconceived notions out. The only way I can fairly review something without personal bias is doing that. I tend to, any personal feelings I might have, depending on my attachment with the character, I try to put to the side, observe and watch the content as it is presented to me, watch it in full, and then I will assess it, take my notes as I'm watching it, so I can do the most comprehensive and hopefully helpful review to you guys as the people that support me and listen to the show. Then later, for fun, I will go back and listen to other reviewers and other colleagues and what their thoughts and everything might be, because I'm a fan of theirs as well. But I tend to try to go in knowing as little as possible without outside influence, because it's so easily with social media and everything being the way it is. It's hard. It's becoming harder as a fan, and even harder as, I guess, a pundit or a reviewer, as I kind of think of myself as a more reviewer of comic related content, to become untainted, to give you my most honest opinion. I won't watch or listen to or read any reviews of anything else that I'm going to cover on the show. I try to stay as far away from it as possible so I can go in. It was kind of unavoidable because it was plastered and everybody was talking about it everywhere, as far as, it wasn't well received. I didn't, click down and watch anything fully, but it was, all over in the headlines. So I will say this. Iron Fist is, for me, it was the weakest show to me out of the four main shows that are leading into the Defenders. Now, saying that, if you've listened to any of the previous episodes where I reviewed any of the other previous shows, they were received extremely well. We're talking about, ratings of 10, 9, 9.5, 8.5, 8. Very high standard. So when you're comparing this and saying this is the worst show, that's a hard level of excellence to maintain. And even saying that, if I would have to look at it as a whole, if I would have to grade Iron Fist and using my ranking system, I would give it a required viewing. If I had to give it a specific number rating, it would be a 7. Now, if we go back to the last Netflix show that was released, Luke Cage, I gave a 9.5 to. Before that, right before Luke Cage, we had Daredevil Season 2, which I gave an 8 to. It's still extremely strong if we're grading these things on a 10-point scale. So a 7 isn't horrible. Would I watch this whole season of this show again? Probably not. But I haven't rewatched any of the seasons of this shows again. The only show that I was tempted to rewatch again because it spoke to me in such a way was Luke Cage. And that would be the only series I could say offhand. And maybe Daredevil Season 1. I would rewatch those 2 seasons. As far as the other shows, I've thoroughly enjoyed them. They're, for whatever reason or another, which I covered in those individual reviews, they're good, they're great. Some of them is like they're not built for rewatchability. And I would say so much this show follows in that ring as well. I think the biggest problem, and this might be attributed, or a lot of people are blaming the showrunner, which is, let me pull this up on IMDb, because there was a lot of talk that I heard scuttlebutting around about the showrunner. He's attached to the new Inhuman show that is I think it's currently being filmed, and it's due to come out, I want to say next year. And people are now worried about what's going to be the status of that show based on how Iron Fist is being received, and he's the showrunner for that show. Oh my God, are we going to have this, similar issues? And it's hard to kind of put that on them, because not anything that anyone creates, we have good days and we have bad days. It's days that I record episodes and I feel like they're not my strongest, because I always try to put my best foot forward or put my best effort forward. And sometimes for me, and it's funny because sometimes what I believe as a content creator is my worst episode ever, and I will put it out. How it's received from the numbers and the feedback I get is totally opposite. So sometimes we can be our own worst critic. Not everything we do as a creator is gonna be a grand slam. You're gonna have some singles. You're gonna have some strikeouts in there. But it's the fact that you keep, as a content creator, keep trying. So I don't feel like it's totally the fault of Scott Buck is the name. He was the showrunner for Iron Fist. I think he was partially to blame, but he's not the sole. It's a whole bunch of other things going on. I feel like, kind of getting into it, especially the first half, because it was 13 episodes. I think the first half of the season, one major glaring issue was the casting. I don't have anything against Finn Jones. I liked him in his role that he played in Game of Thrones. That's when I was familiar with him. Going into this, when he was cast for this, I never believed him as Danny Rand, and he was never compelling. And that goes with most of the cast when it comes to Finn Jones, Jessica Stroup as Joy Meacham, David Wenham as Harold Meacham. They just didn't work for me at this casting. They not saying as actors they didn't put their all in the roles. I think they committed to it, but they just didn't come off the screen as compelling characters. And I think Finn just wasn't believable to me. As my exposure to Iron Fist is relatively limited. I read The Immortal Iron Fist from Brubaker and Fraction with David Aja. That's about the most of my experience. And then he popped up in different things like during Civil War when he was a part of the Avengers and things like that. So my experience with Danny Rand is very limited. I'll say that. But the Danny Rand that I read that made me fall in love with the character, especially during that Fraction Brubaker run, this wasn't my same Danny Rand. He was unrecognizable to me, and he was just unbelievable. And he seemed kind of whiny, out of sorts. He wasn't established as I thought he would be in the role. And again, I just always felt underwhelmed by his portrayal of the character. And it just, I watched all 13 episodes, and I was hoping it was going to get better, and it got slightly better as the show went on. It was never to a point where it bothered me so much where I couldn't watch it, but I just never fully sold in. Like, he didn't just have that charisma that Mike Coulter had as Luke Cage, or even Ritter had as Jessica Jones. Christine Ritter had as Jessica Jones, or even Charlie Cox as Matt Murdock in Daredevil. He never pulled me in. He never hooked me to care about his struggle and his plight that he went through this massive 13 episode story arc. I just never could buy into it. And I don't necessarily think it was his fault. I think the writing was indicative of it, that he didn't have much to go on, and he tried the best he could to flesh the character out with what he had. But it just felt like the writing of this season let the actors and even the showrunner and so forth down. I feel like it was written and plotted very poorly as a television show, as a series, as of all the Netflix shows. I felt like this was the worst written of them all and plotted throughout, for sure. The overall story arc seemed just very predictable. I knew very much from the beginning where everything was going. After the first episode, I knew who the bad guys were before they even revealed it. They made it so blatantly evident. I knew immediately that Harold Meacham had killed his parents, tried to kill him. And he was just waiting for it was revealed, and it took so long for them to reveal it. It made it painful at parts watching the show, based on it. And like I said, I don't know I went back and forth on this. I didn't think it was a good casting when they first announced Finn Jones, but I was like, I'll wait and see, because I didn't necessarily think Christine Ritter was going to be the best choice for Jessica Jones from my exposure to the character from the comics. But I liked Christine Ritter. And even though she didn't necessarily look or fit the role specifically in what I had in mind, but I couldn't think of that I can remember. I talked about it in a review of it. It was no one else that jumped out at me that could have played the role that I could think that I could put in mind that would have been a better choice than her. But then in watching the series, she did embody the essence of what that character was, so it was fine. Initially, the eye test was like, I don't know if she could pull that off to be that character. But as you watch the series, she more than excelled and really sold me. And I look forward to the next season of Jessica Jones. I really buy her as that character. The standout in the series, which is so disheartening to say, because you would think the main character, the namesake character, Danny Rand, the Iron Fist, would have been the standout of the show. But to me, the standout characters were some of the supporting characters. I think the best character in the series was Jessica Henwick as Colleen Wing. She really excelled. The show always picked up, and she put so much into her character. She was, to me, the MVP, or really kept me interested in going through the episodes, seeing just what was going on with her character next. She was really strong. I think Madame Gao, Wee Chung Ho, she, the little we saw of her in Daredevil season 1, she really got a much meatier portion in this story, and it fit, and she excelled as always. I really, really enjoyed her in this series, and can't wait to see her interaction in this universe, because we know she has an attachment to Daredevil. She's had eyes on Luke Cage because she's mentioned things in Jessica Jones. So I think she's going to be a cornerstone of a dangerous element, and it's hard because they play her kind of down the middle here. She could be dangerous. She could be helpful. She's kind of this weird middle ground in this world right now. And so it's interesting to me where she might go next, where they might go next with her character. And I look forward to seeing more of her. Now, out of the Meachums, because a big portion of the story centered around this whole situation between the Rands and the Meachums and what the fathers did, now it trickling down to their kids. And I remember Jessica Stroup from This Christmas. A movie came out probably 8-9 years ago or whatever now. She played a minor role in that movie, and that's the only thing I could really remember her from. I'm not a huge TV watcher. I IMDb'd her and seen that she's been on some other TV shows and such. So I was familiar with her, and I don't think she's a bad actress at all. I just think partially miscast and not well written. And it wasn't much for her to work with, and I just never could, again, just like with Finn Jones, I could never buy into her. Now, what I'll say, the saving grace of the whole Meachum storyline was Tom Pelphrey as Ward Meachum. He started out as a despicable character. They made him a sympathetic character, and then in the end, they made him a redeemed character. This was the funny thing about the show. I've got more, before the show ended, I was twice as much invested in Ward's story than I ever was in Danny's story. And that's ridiculous, because he's not even, I guess he, in the hierarchy of the villainry in the series, he was at most never a viable threat as a main villain. He's kind of like a top henchman guy. But he had, as far as the male characters in this series, he had the most compelling story arc in it. I don't know what that says about the writing of the series, that you could say like the third or fourth tier supporting character had a male character was the most important male on the TV show. and acted brilliantly with Tom Pelphrey. I've seen his face before, but I don't know from where and what. Again, he made me hate him when I needed to hate him. And he made me feel sympathy for him when I needed to. And then you made me proud to see him come out on the other end of it by the end of the first season, which is great. So the writing shone through for him, but this fell so short on, like I said, the more principal characters. The Harold Meacham character was just forgettable, totally transparent from the beginning. It was hard to believe that Danny could keep falling for his same shtick over and over again and keep getting deceived by him, and that was one of the most unbelievable things. But I know they were trying to sell, Danny was out of the world for 15 years, so he would have a naivete of a newborn baby, type deal, coming back and adjusting to the real world. At this point in his life, having everything thrown at him, it still just was unbelievable. I didn't care for the character. I think the actor did, the best job he could with what he had. I don't blame the actor for it at all. But again, never cared anything about him whatsoever. I think he was on screen a little bit way too much for my taste. Yeah. Didn't really care for it. And motivations weren't fully properly explained. I mean, he threw, like, you read the very end, he started throwing out stuff about, he was jealous, but why was he jealous if they were partners and they both owned the business? How did that really work? I was, and this was the problem. If you're going to make so much of the show about, this corporate power struggle, Game of Thrones is Game of Thrones like within a modern New York day setting in a corporate surrounding. Give me why, the structure of the partnership, because the company's name was Rand and he was Danny Rand and his dad ran the Rand Corporation. See, I did puns. You don't just listen to me for the knowledge. You listen to me for the entertainment of it all. That was a good pun. I can acknowledge that. I'm going to acknowledge that right now. Haha, I laughed. You can laugh too now. Anyway, his motivations, how the partnership was set up, why he would have been so fueled to try to take the Rands out and take over the company. Was he a full partner? Was he just a friend that he brought on to help him run the company and the Rands really owned the whole company? It was never made clear why that vitriol and hate was so there for the Rands and he wanted to take out his partner and kill his son and all this other stuff. His motivations were never made even slightly clear in it all, and how he got his power and how he was able to come back to life they made such a big deal and so much of the show focused on it, and you didn't see the what, when, where, and why. It was all kind of thrown away in exposition at the very end during the last battle between the two. And I'm like, if you use all this time concentrating on it, you could have dedicated cut some of that other meandering, dragging out stuff and filled it with more explanation about his motivation. Why did I can't remember what Danny Rand's father's name was. Thomas, was it Thomas Rand or something like that? Can't remember that. We could have seen something where he slighted him or treated him in a certain way that would have triggered Harold to have the hate that he had towards him and wanted to take him out to take the company over. It just did not make sense at the end of the day. I think a lot of things that did work, because I don't want to just focus on a whole bunch of negative stuff. I felt like the chemistry between certain characters, I think Jessica Henwick is Colin Wing. Her chemistry with Finn Jones was phenomenal. I bought their relationship. Totally in the turmoil that they were going through, that she loved him. She sold it. She really, to me, was out of the new cast that we were introduced with. I felt like she was the most committed and she really put her all in. And, I would love to see, I don't know where they're going to go with her character next. I know she's supposed to show up in Defenders at some point. I'm assuming if they do I'm assuming it's going to be renewed for a second season. I don't think the official word has come down yet. I would be hard pressed, because I feel like the biggest thing, though I was somewhat disappointed by the output of the final product of Iron Fist, I feel like there's a ton of potential here for the show to, go from that 7 that I'm giving it to 8.5, 9 in the next season, with just some few minor tweaks to tighten up some of it, because you saw improvement as the show progressed. Like I said, like with the stunt choreography and even the shots and the composition of some of the fight scenes in the first 6 episodes, and the final 7, they got way tighter, and the coordination was done so much better. So you saw improvement as the show went throughout. Again, I felt like that should have been, because all the other fight scenes, especially Daredevil, has a lot of martial arts in it, and even season 1 and season 2. I mean, why not bring those same, stunt guys on? Because it just seemed like they were inexperienced. And with Iron Fist being such a kung fu karate-based character, you would think you would have some of the top people. I know budgets are limited, but you could have had some better people. I was like, gosh, even Arrow and the CW shows have better fight coordinators and choreography on them than what we saw in those first 6 episodes of Iron Fist. That totally blew my mind, with him being he's the Iron Fist, the kung fu related, the karate character. Like, that's the core of his. And that was another thing about Finn Jones' performance as Danny Rand. He just looked plain silly doing some of the kung fu moves. He just looked silly and more like a hippie from the 70s. And I felt like the Immortal Iron Fist story brought he was the 70s, and he was created during that blaxploitation era in comics and in entertainment, with characters like Shaft, like Luke Cage, and how they modernized his character. I felt like they didn't nail that transition well with Danny at all. He felt really much like a character from the 70s as a modern day kind of hippie. And so seeing him do the practice moves, and even in the fight scenes, he just didn't sell it well at all. And I think it hurt, because that physicality part of Danny Rand and the Iron Fist is essential. And I just think they kind of fell flat on it. I also liked Finn's chemistry with the Davos character by Sacha Dhawan. Their brother, their kinship, their brotherhood. They really did a really good job with that, selling that, and you could see from the end scene of the first season that Davos is going to have a dark turn, a la I thought. What came to my mind was Doctor Strange with Mordo's turn at the end. You're going to see in season 2 that Davos, he's going to have a lot of enemies going into season 2 that, like, Danny didn't have enough in season 1, but you definitely see where Davos is going to be a problem for him, as well as even Joy is going to be a problem for him going into it. What was some of the other things I wanted to talk about? I thought certain things were totally horrible. Like, they did a fight scene in episode 8 that was with like a drunken master, and it was so stereotypical, horribly conceived, and even more horribly, if that's even a word, executed. I could have totally done without that. Also the little plot twist midway through where Ward stabbed Harold and killed him and dumped the body, and we thought he was dead, to find out later he wasn't. You saw that coming a mile away, so I wasn't shocked by it. I kind of wish they would have kept that enacted, because I didn't see what Harold really brought back to the series by coming back alive, in all honesty. Those same things could have been conducted by Ward, and so I didn't see the need, outside of they just wanted to keep using that actor in a role. I could have did without it, because like I said, if they were going to do that, I felt like they should have explained more about, okay, how did he get this ability to come back to life? Why did it take him so long to come back to life? What would motivate him to come back to life? Why was he, when he first came back to life, he was acting so strange? And, you know, they tried to do it through exposition, but it didn't work. I rather would have seen, if they were going to do it, make it as important as you try to make it out to be by showing that backstory to it, or have someone explain it better than what they did. And I felt like that whole twist was ripped directly and bitten right off of out of Luke Cage, where Mariah took out Cottonmouth. It just seemed, you know, you saw that kind of coming. I was like, okay, you know, he keeps picking on Ward. Ward's going to get his breaking point, and he's going to get him, you know. And when he did, it was like, okay. And again, they made him sympathetic, and he fought back against his bullying father, and then they kind of did it away. But the other events that came up with Ward's character, you know, helped complete his arc by the end. And I really liked where he ended in it all. Another thing I would have to say, one of the other saving graces of the show was the implementation or the introduction of Claire in this world. You know, she's the Nick Fury of the Netflix series. Rosario Dawson really has something special with this character. She's in it all, you know, she's totally in sync with the character. She plays well off of all the other actors. So it's they couldn't have picked a better, you know, actor or actress to be this linchpin, because her chemistry is great with every single character that they pair her with. And the show picked up at the moment you saw her on screen. This is when the show picked up, and it carried it through to the end. Where some people say, and I can even say even slightly, that Luke Cage kind of tapered off at the middle point in the second half of the season. It's kind of reverse here. The beginning of Iron Fist is extremely slow, almost skippable. And then you get to that middle point around, I can't remember what, episode 6 or 7, when we see Claire for the first time. The show takes off from there. And I feel like Iron Fist ends on a higher note. The ending is not so, it's anticlimactic in a way, but the show ends on a higher note, way higher note, and I'm more invested in the world, not necessarily the characters, but the world by the end of it than I ever was at the beginning of it. So I can definitely say that worked in its favor as a show, that it picked up by the end. So I think piggybacking off that momentum and whatever might happen in Defenders, that season 2 of Iron Fist could really be what we expected the first season to be. You know, like certain shows, we saw many shows that started off slow, and over the seasons they progress and they become our favorite shows. So I think, you know, people try to crucify the show. I don't do that. I feel like it has the potential there to be equal or surpass the quality of the other shows that we already love so much. But certain things take time. One other thing I did want to mention that was another blatant ripoff: the narrow hallway fight scene, which now has become the jumping the shark of the Marvel Netflix series. It seems like if you have a Marvel Netflix series, at some point you're going to have a hallway, and your characters are going to be overwhelmed, and they're going to have to fight in that hallway. Ever since Daredevil season, and it never has been done as well as Daredevil season 1 with that episode 4, I think it was. I mean, they're going to beat that one to death, because every show since, maybe Jessica Jones didn't, but every other one has. You know, even Daredevil season 2, you know, he fought down a corridor, down some stairs, and then in another corridor, you know, they keep trying to up it in some way or some fashion. Or, you know, in Iron Fist, it was a scene where he's fighting in the elevator, and it's like, you know, we've seen that in movies before a ton of times, and they just weren't executed well. So stop aping your, you know, tidbits from other things you like and put it in this show, and think of some new original ideas when it comes to action for it that's specific to the character that you might want to try. Because I felt like it was a lot of little things that they aped off of other Netflix series to throw in this series. Another thing that was good about the world that they established in the connected world, a lot of things that we saw teased from Daredevil season 1 with the hand, and the drugs with the similar symbol of the Iron Fist, that had been planted from the very beginning. that played out throughout, that we saw a lot of that stuff pay off, especially with the Hand, with Gal, with the drugs. All these things, they came to fruition, and we saw them enacted in this during the course of the series, which I love that connected world. I wish I just would have cared about the characters as much as I cared at the world and how it all tied into the bigger picture. But again, that gives the potential for the Defenders to be so much stronger. But I think that the showrunner for the Defenders is the showrunner that took over Daredevil for season 2. So everyone has, high expectations for the Defenders when that comes out. I'm looking forward to it. All in all, like I said, I feel it's required viewing if you're invested in this Marvel Netflix universe. It's required viewing. If I had to put a numerical number to it, it's a 7. So if I'm continuing how I rank the Marvel Netflix shows to this point, it would be the worst one at a 7. Daredevil season 2, like I said earlier. Also, I gave a review of required viewing, an 8 out of 10. Jessica Jones season 1, I gave an 8.5. Luke Cage, I gave a 9.5. And Daredevil season 1 for me was a 10 out of 10. So, it has some room to grow, but it's still worth watching. It might not be the overall most pleasant watch, but it's essential to if you're plugged into this world and you're invested in it at this point. It's definitely worth checking out. That's all I have for you guys for this week. I hope you enjoyed this episode. You can find me at comicbooksavant.com. That's the website. On Twitter and Instagram, it's at comicbooksavant. Again, we still got the contest going. If you I'm going to pick the winner from new people that follow me on Instagram. I've been trying to post them there a lot more recently. I've been posting on Facebook, the Facebook group, or follow me on Facebook, James H. Harris III. You find me. I will friend you. Like, I post a lot of comic book related questions, stuff that I'm gonna I'm trying to get your guys' opinions on, so I can incorporate in topics that I want to cover in upcoming shows. So follow me there. Like I said, the contest for the $25 In Stock Trades gift certificate runs till the middle of next month. So if you are a new follower on Instagram, I'm going to pick randomly from those people that have joined during this time period and pick a winner to get that $24 gift certificate. Again, if you'd like to support the show, you can go to the website. I have links to, if you want to donate via PayPal, it's a link there. It's also a link to Patreon. I have a Patreon campaign going for the show. There's different tiers. You can see what's available, where I'm trying to take the show. Your support can always help. I do have one sponsor for the show, but it doesn't cover all the expenses, and it's more I want to do with the show for you guys. Like I said, I'm bringing in elements that I want to incorporate on YouTube. And just other stuff, I want to bring in, potentially do interviews and stuff as equipment, all that kind of stuff that I need. You guys have been really supportive and supported me over the years and continue to support me. That's another avenue there. If not, if you can't afford to, I can understand that as well. Just keep spreading the word, keep sharing my content different places to help get the word out to more people. That always helps me the most, and I can see it by the numbers. So I know you guys are doing it. I appreciate what you do. I love you guys for doing it, and keep thinking of me and keep supporting the show in that way. That's all I have for you guys for this week. Again, I'll be back next week with another episode of Comic Book Savant. I believe next week we're going to be talking about The Walking Dead, the Whisperer War. That just wrapped up not too long ago. The trade just dropped for it. I'm going to do a spotlight on that event over for The Walking Dead. So that'll be coming next week. And I will see you guys then. Take care, and I'll see you next week.
And into lyrical wholeness